Okay, so today's subject will be working with Git in Unreal Engine 4, and for specific in this video we'll be working with GitHub. So what we need a GitHub account, and you need to log into your github.com. How to create an account, I'm not going to go through those details, it's just too obvious. And most tutorials starts here by creating a new repository and setting up everything here. Don't do that. Don't do it that way. I will explain why in a second. Then the second thing you need will be a GitHub desktop application, which is just fine. So this is a client that allows you to sync your local repository with the online repository. And third thing will be obviously a project that you want to create a Git commit out of it. So I just created this new project. It's just a third-person template. Let's run it. Oh. Okay, there we have it. Dismiss any changes. We can play it. And this is just the standard third-person example project. Nothing to it. So we got this, and now we want to make it a repository. So what we do, we click on source control, connect to source control. We select provider, which is Git, and it says beta version. Don't worry about it. It's like this for the last 3 years at least, or maybe more than that. It will find the Git path automatically. If it doesn't, it means you haven't installed any Git. So you haven't installed Git on your machine, so it can't find it. However, if you anywhere have git.exe, it will find it. It will set up some of your basic setup for GitHub account, but if it doesn't, don't worry about it. This is irrelevant completely. You want to add a git ignore file. It is very important. This will ignore all saved, intermediate files and folders that should be only stored locally and should never be synchronized, because it would make the repository ridiculously big. You can URL the remote server origin automatically. So if you created an empty repository, you can link it, but we're not going to do that. And you can add a basic. So basic readme, and we can say this is the tutorial project GitHub. Okay. Plus UE4. Okay. Something like that. And now we also want to add Git attributes to enable Git LFS. If we don't do that here, we cannot do it on GitHub website, and we would have to initialize LFS by hand through console commands. So if you don't want to do that, and you don't know how to use Git console, and you don't know how to do synchronization of repositories through console, just do it here and click initialize. And it's saying it's adding files to source control. And what we need to do now is just accept settings, and that's it. So now this project is running at source control. If we go into submit to source control, it will say that he's checking all assets and saying no assets to check in, because he already checked in everything. So if we go into, let's say, third person BP, blueprints, and we'll make a new blueprint. And we make it an actor and call it awesome actor. Okay, so now it is unstaged, so it has this question mark, and we can either right click on it and say source control, mark for add, or we can go into source control, submit to source control. Check out modified files means that we are checking all files that we are working at right now to see if they have changed since our previous checkout. So if we are working in, let's say, 2 or more people on the same project at the same time, we can quickly do a sync before we continue to work. So let's do this. Okay, it saved everything and checked if we have any changes, and it automatically changed the status of this file to add, which means that it's a new file. So it hasn't been added to the repository yet, because in order to add to repository, you can create more actors, and let's say make a pound and say it pp example pound, and this also is unknown, so we can just go source control mark for add, and it is added to source control. And now if you want to sync both of those actors, we just go here, submit to source control, and it will automatically make us a commit. And this is example commit to showcase how it works directly from UE4. Okay, so we're submitting those files, and once we submitted those files, they are staged. So those icons will disappear. However, as soon as we open a file and we don't really do anything with it, I think that all we have to do is recompile. No, we would have to make any change. Let's add a variable, compile and save. So now its status changed, which means that we need to sync it again in order to sync this change. And it will say that, yeah, this file changed, and change variables in file. And we can submit again, and we created 2 submits right now, but we are still not syncing with the internet, right? So what we need to do now, because this is just a local repository, it's already tracking changes, and we can roll back those changes to the previous commit. But what we want to do is want to be able to view those changes, view those states, and modify them at runtime. So let's go here, go to our repositories, add existing repository. Let's find the repository, and it will be, for my case, Unreal Projects, Git Examples. Click on the main folder of the project, or double click, it will still be here. Select the folder, add repository, and now we have this repository. And saying the repository uses Git LFS must first be initialized. Would you like to do so? Yes, of course. Okay. So LFS should be initialized in this repository already. Oh my god, that's too big. Okay. And now we are at the branch master, and we don't have any repository online that would contribute to our syncing. So what we do publish, or publish here, and we go to github.com, log in to our credentials here. Normally it would ask us to log in if we haven't already. If we have login, it will just call us what's the name of the repository that we want to name it online. So let's say that it's the same name, git export, description, tutorial example project. Okay. Do you want to make this repository private or public? Let's make it public, I don't care. Organization, if you pick none, it means it is your organization. If you don't have this drop-down list, it means you are not part of multiple organizations. I am a small contributor to NVIDIA GameWorks and Epic Games Unreal Engine, as well as Simul, so I got more options than that. But by default, we just pick none, and this will be our organization, publish repository. Okay, it's finished syncing just a second ago, and now we can go into history. And in the history, we can see that we have the initial commit that we created with the project. We have commit, this is example commit to showcase, and this contains only 2 files that we added. And the last one is a different logo because it is a change of a file. And now what you need to know about blueprints is that they are binary files, which means that you don't see changes in code in those files. You just see different hash in the LFS, which is large file storage. So the actor, the previous version is completely swapped to the new version. So if you want to revert changes, you can just click on any of those commits, and you can then revert changes in commit, same as here. And yeah, what else there is? You can obviously do syncing in a second way that I will show you in a moment, but first let's go into our website. So if you go into website and refresh, you can see that now I have this open repository called my login / git examples, as we called it. And if you click it, you can see all the files, you can see when they were published, you can see the branches. Yeah, got it. And here you can start inviting other people to collaborate with you, and you can basically do anything that you want. You can clone this repository, you can open it with GitHub desktop, you can download zip, whatever you want. So you can manage it from here right now, but it's already initiated with Git LFS. LFS is initialized on GitHub, so it works properly right now. However, if you have really a lot of files, let's say 40,000 of files inside the project, and you're working on them, and you are constantly doing some changes, and the work can be very problematic if it's doing a checkout every time you edit or save anything, basically. So what you can also do is you can disconnect here and do change source control settings now, say none, run without source control, but this doesn't destroy the repository, it just stops doing those syncing actions. So now you don't have source control and actions, you have connect to source control. But if you don't do that and you add an actor, so completely, okay, just call it pp new actor. So you got this new actor, and we just save it, and you don't see any status changes, and you don't sync at all. You can go here, and here in desktop GitHub you can see that there is a new file, there is a change, it has an ID in local repository, so the repository still exists and it still works. It's just not being synced on this level, but you can still sync on this level. So you can say custom commit added one file disabled repo inside UE4, and I can commit to master. I can go into history, I can see this, that it needs to be pushed, and now I can push it. It will upload this one file to the repository. Okay. And now if I go on the website, if I go into content, and I think it was third-person BP blueprints, I can see this BP new actor, and it was committed 30 seconds ago. So it's still syncing, it's still working perfectly. The only difference is that now we are not using Unreal Engine to sync, we're using syncing by hand. And this is usually how I work on really big projects that have a lot of files. And there is a lot of things that we would have to discuss. So like, for example, you should use developer content. So basically, if you have multiple people working as developers, you have one folder per creator created, and you only see your own folder, and it is not being synced with the rest of the content. So whatever is a work in progress, right? Whatever you are working in progress, you should do here. It's not being synced. So this is just a BP work in progress. And then you can save it, do stuff, you sync the repository normally, you work on this object, and once it's ready, you move it where you might want to have it in the last place, and call it final product. And now you just save it, and you go back here, and only now you see those changes. Those are changes to the map, obviously, and our final product UI asset, because we saved the map as well. And saving any object changes the object. You can see that it slightly changes the bitrate of the map, so it's a bit smaller because of some ridiculous reasons of, I don't know, how the camera is placed in the level or something like that. Or it generated a thumbnail of the map and it was already registered as a change. So we got two changes, one extra file, another example, commit to master, example of working with the folders. And when it's production ready, you just put it in the right folder, and you then just push changes, and that's it. And yeah, that's how you work with GitHub accounts. Thank you for listening, and see you guys soon. Bye.